Hi everyone, this is Ash Said Hi, and I am so happy to present to you today one of my favorite video games of all time, UN Squadron on Super Nintendo. Now, there are many versions of UN Squadron. There's one on the Commodore 64, there's an arcade version, an Amiga version, a ZX Spectrum version, but I love the Super Nintendo version the most, and we'll get into the differences between all of those versions a little bit later. We are going to do an easy mode run. And I am just now learning the speed run for this game. In fact, I'm not incorporating any speedrun strats that other speedrunners have used. I'm simply building my skill at this game, and it is very satisfying to be able to finish this game. So I love playing on easy mode to kind of learn the ins and outs of the game. I do play on the harder difficulties typically, but not for a speed run, maybe for a challenge run. So I will explain the differences between the game levels a little bit later. But yeah, so let's get into the easy mode run. We're going to select easy, exit, and then the timer is going to start when I select my pilot. So I'm pressing the start button here. And then I'm going to press the B button on Shin Kazama, and then the timer will start now. So we are picking the first level where we have to fight a tank, and then we're going to pick our trusty F8E because that's the only ship we can afford. It is free. And then we're going to take the cluster because we only have $3,000. We need to shoot down some planes to earn money. And if you want to know a little bit more about the backstory this game is actually based off of a manga and an anime called Area 88. And it's cool because you can also learn the backstories of all the pilots. And speaking of the pilots, you might be wondering why I chose Shin Kazama. So I chose Shin because Shin, as you can see, our neutral shot, our regular power shot, Shin levels that up the fastest, whereas the others don't level it up as quickly. Mickey McKimson will have more quantity of the sub-weapon, and Greg Gates we trust always, but for the speedrun purposes, we use Shin Kazama, but Greg will hold on to health a little bit longer. So if you get hit for 2 on other pilots, like Greg might only take 1 damage. So we are coming up to the boss of this level. You'll see that little gem-like thing that turns blue to purple to red. That's the weak spot. You don't necessarily have to aim for it. You can shoot anywhere on the tank, but I like to aim for it because it feels satisfying to shoot it down. So, and there you go. There's mission 1. So the differences between all of the games is the modes in which you are able to play. Actually, before I talk about that, I always like to talk about the little cutscene that shows there. So that cutscene usually shows like a quip or a pun or something, and it's pretty cute. But for the speed run, I like to go through it quickly. And now we're able to buy more of the sub-weapons, and each plane has specific sub-weapons that are available to it. So now that we've made some money, I'm able to buy some of the sub-weapons. And so you might be wondering, well, what happens if you buy all of the items and don't use them? At the end of the level, you actually get a refund back for any of the sub items that you don't use, which is pretty nifty. But for speedrunning purposes, it might be more strategic to buy only the items you need, because you then, for whatever you don't use, you have to wait for that refund at the end of every level, and that might not be a good use of your time. You might also be wondering, hey, when you took damage, you lost 2 health. So if I get hit by a projectile, something like flying on the screen, I'll lose 1 health. But if you run into a plane, like physically take damage, or run into like, you know, something within the level, like a rock or something, you will take 2 damage. And the damage, according to the instruction booklet, is fuel. So if you lose all of your fuel, you will lose a life. And then you might also be wondering, how do you power up your neutral shot? So those orange ships that you see will either drop a 1, a red, or a blue, which is 3. And then you might also be wondering, why am I not shooting this plane yet? Well, this plane doesn't take damage until it starts to move upwards. So if you start shooting it before it starts moving up, you won't be doing any damage to it. Sometimes it flies all the way up and sometimes it doesn't. So I use the Mega Crush and then I shoot it a couple of times and then that is the end of mission 2. So there you go. Also, you might be wondering why I do the levels in the order that I do them in. So normally I'll do the desert, then I'll do the Minks, and then I'll do the fortress, right? So the reason why, and I could be wrong, like somebody in the comments let me know if there is a different way to approach this, but I have noticed that there are certain levels that don't require your shot to be as powered up as much. And this stage is definitely the one out of those 3. So if I go into this stage with a level 3 shot, it won't be as difficult as if like I went to the fortress with a level 3 shot, right? So that's why I try to do this stage first, and then Minks, and then the desert. You will also wonder why I'm not spending money buying other planes. Well, because I usually play almost the entire game with the F8E, and then I save up $1 million to be able to buy the F200, which has all of the weapons available to it. So I try to save up so that way I don't have to grind for more money later, which can be a big time sink. So we're going to shoot that down. We're going to shoot these trucks down. And then you'll also notice that enemies, as you play this game more and more, you'll notice that there's not much RNG. When you learn the enemy patterns, they will fly in pretty much the same pattern every single time you play the game. RNG really only exists for certain bosses and certain scenarios in this game. And so what I usually do for this boss right here is I stay on the horizon line right here, and as long as you rock back and forth in between the projectiles shooting up, you'll be fine. There is a way to hit that weak point underneath where the planes were coming out, but I haven't learned where that pixel perfect part is. So if anybody in the chat knows, or anybody in the comments knows where that spot is, like I saw somebody doing it on gamer mode one time and I wasn't able to find a spot. So leave it in the comments and let me know where that spot is, because I would like to know. All right, we're going on to the Minks level now. The Minks level and the Fortress level, you get a lot of power-ups for your shot. And the F8E, the maximum power for this is level 5, whereas the F200, I believe the maximum level is 7, but I could be wrong about that. Someone in the comments can let me know. This is one of my favorite levels. I love the music. I'm gonna use the cluster right there. I love the sunset changing. So the differences between the different games. In the arcade version, which is also similar to the Commodore version, the Amiga version, when you pick a pilot, the plane is fixed. You always have to fly the particular plane. But the Super Nintendo version allows you to pick your plane, pick your sub-weapons, and then you're also stuck with a sub-weapon in the arcade version. So we're going to shoot down the unicorn here. We're going to try and shoot down the turrets. There's 2 ways to defeat the Minks. It's either defeating the turrets, there's 4 of them, or there's a weak point that you want to take out. So I missed getting the unicorn, which I usually never miss. the unicorn provides us with a shield that will protect us for 3 shots, but that's okay. I pretty much have all my health. And then you might have noticed, like, hey, that unicorn, how did you know that that unicorn was there? Well, there are secret, like, items that you can find throughout the levels. And the good thing is that those items, their spot is always fixed, right? So if you know exactly where they are, you memorize their spot, like, they'll always be at those exact spots every time you play those levels. And that's really cool. And there's so many different kinds. There's the unicorn that gives health back. There is the star, which gives you $50,000. There is the, oh, nice, we took care of the Minks. There's the star that gives you $50,000, the unicorn that gives you a shield that protects you for 3 hits. There is an all-screen clear. There is an item that gives you more, increases your sub-weapons and like refills some of your sub-weapons. And then there is a heal that will heal your health. And I think that's it. I think I covered it all. So in this level, this is the fortress level. And you want to shoot down all the trees, because if you shoot down all the trees at the end of the level, you will get a unicorn that will give you the shield. And I definitely want that shield at the end. Also, you definitely want to be careful about babysitting the corners of this level, because planes are always flying out of the corners. So I usually try to move around in a circular motion in this level. So we're going to try and get all of the power-ups for our shot. And we're going to be careful about taking more damage. We want to be really careful about that. We are at max power for this plane, which is super nice. And I'm going to use the cluster right here, take all those planes out. Careful of those coming from behind. And then we are almost to the end of this level. So I like to just kind of jump forward there a little bit. Get my shield, which will protect me from 3 shots. And now, here is the fortress. So, I don't have to shoot down these turrets. I shoot them down because it's satisfying. But there is a weak point in the middle of this stage. And that is the most important part. That's the part that we want to defeat right here. So as I said again, there's 4 different difficulty modes. There is easy, normal. There's easy, normal, hard, and gamer mode. There's a full heal right here, which I will take advantage of that. And then we can shoot down the turret here. I usually shoot these down. It's very satisfying. Here we go. And then that is mission 5. Now, you are able on easy mode to defeat that without turning around. But it was good to kind of demonstrate that so you can see where that full heal was. Now, the submarine and the Wolfpack have opened up. It does not matter what order you defeat these in, because unlike the other stages, you don't get any power-ups for your shot here. And the submarine is pretty much just the boss battle. It's just the submarine. And the Wolfpack is a really short level, and the boss is pretty short. So it doesn't matter which one you do, first or second. But they tend to pop up after those missions are complete, after those 3 missions are complete. So, and the one thing I want to demonstrate here is the submarine will send out a shot, send out the bombs that go up. And you might have seen it also on the Minks. But you'll see, notice right here, there's some slowdown. I use that to my advantage all the time when I'm playing this game, especially on the more difficult levels. It will help me get out of sticky situations with getting hit with a projectile. So definitely, especially on the harder difficulty levels, use that to your advantage. And there is the submarine. And that's mission 6. So yeah, so the different difficulty levels, the projectiles come out faster, the planes move faster. Sometimes there's more projectiles. It really depends on what stage we're talking about here. But yeah, the 4 different difficulty levels, easy, normal, hard, and the appropriately named gamer mode. Gamer mode is only accessible through inputting a second controller into the console, pressing a combination of buttons on the second controller, and then selecting gamer mode on the first controller. It's pretty complicated. So what makes the Wolfpack level different is, unlike the other levels where enemy planes fly through the frame, like they'll fly in and out, this level is different. The enemies here will stay on the screen unless you blow them up, which can be pretty dangerous because they will stack up for the boss battle and you definitely do not want them to stack up. And there's the end of the Wolfpack. You don't want those bosses to stack up. I mean, those enemies to stack up on the boss, because they will be distracting and it will not be fun having to deal with them and the boss at the same time. The other thing that I really like about that little cutscene is whatever plane you buy, it is reflected in that cutscene, which is pretty cool. So this next level I really love because the boss is modeled after a plane called the SR-71. And if you don't know the SR-71, if you don't know the history of it, it's a real plane. I definitely encourage you to look it up. It is such a cool plane. And I love everything about it, the design and everything. So I also say that I usually buy the F200 when I'm playing this level, because in the harder difficulties, this level is really tough with the projectiles that are being thrown at you and everything. So usually at this point, I have the F200. Ooh, that was really rough there. Okay, we are lucky. I have to make sure not to get hit here, so I'm gonna focus. I'm gonna lock in. Locking in, locking in. Now, here's another part of the game that has some RNG. I never know whether or not the SR-71 is going to stay on screen or fly away. It's very hard to tell. Sometimes it stays and sometimes it doesn't. It just likes to fly away sometimes. So I never know what it's going to do. But the most important thing is, see, and that's an opportunity where I used that slowdown to my advantage and maneuver out of a very tricky situation. And there we go. There's the end of the SR-71. Love that plane, but had to see it go. Now we have $1 million. We can buy the F200 and we can take on the final, not the second to final stage. Which I definitely need the F200 for. So in this stage, there we go. We got the F200. I need this weapon, the Phoenix, the Gun Pod, and the Mega Crush, which I had enough money for, which is really great. So this level used to give me a lot of trouble. It is tough in the harder difficulties. It is really, really tough. So I might lock in a little bit here. But the biggest problem with this stage is like the planes that show up behind you just like quickly there. So you just gotta kind of pay attention to everything around you. And then shoot that. And then some planes are gonna pop up under us. So like I said, if you memorize everything in this game, like you'll pretty much memorize like all of the patterns for attack. Now some planes are gonna pop up around us. We're gonna use that there, use that there. And then we're gonna switch to the Phoenix and kind of just let them fly. I'm constantly pressing the Phoenix, which is like a homing missile. Super, super, super useful for this section of the game. Ooh, and we picked up the $50,000 bonus right there. So I'm going to save some of the Phoenixes because there's going to be some planes popping up behind us. Take those out, and then some planes popping up under us, but we can just shoot those. Get out the way there. Now this boss, you need a little bit of patience for this boss. The strategy here is to hug the ground, hug this conveyor belt. As long as you hug the ground, you will stay under these turrets and you will not take any damage. I am going to go and get the unicorn that's up here. Boom, get my shield. And then there's the only ways that you can take damage is you see the fire that just came out right there is that. And then the enemy that is basically that turret right there. If it starts spouting fire and you are under it, you will take damage there. Now, there is a speed run way to defeat this boss, but I kind of use a safety strat for this, which is hugging the ground. I took some damage there. You can get into this little crevice right here and shoot that weak point, but I am not good at that yet. So I tend not to do that. I tend to just use the gun pod and kind of just attack here. So I am very, very careful with this boss. I have been burned so many times trying to do like a faster way to defeat it, and I just am like, no, I don't want to waste that time there. Awesome. Now we are going to the final stage, and usually what I do is, you don't have to do this. I buy all the weapons. It's probably better if I don't buy all the weapons for time. But I just like buying all the weapons. And you might be wondering too, what are those little green trucks? So those are great ways to farm money. They're like really short levels where they're like kind of like mini games almost, where you can earn $20,000. So here is the final stage. There might be some points where I lock in, but yeah, enjoy. Okay, there is an all screen clear right here. Boom. Use the cluster right there, take that out. And then we're gonna switch to the gun pod. Now, there was a point in time when I could not defeat this last level. It was super hard for me. But I started getting kind of good at it. So we definitely want to make sure that we are careful about being in the corner of this level, because planes will start to pop up behind us. And then I'm going to actually switch to the cluster here. I don't have to pause to switch weapons, but sometimes I do, just as a safety strat. And see, we took advantage of that slowdown right there. That was super helpful. I definitely have to be aware of how many clusters I use. There is a point in this level where I want to make sure I have some. So I'm trying not to use them all. which is coming up right now. The area where I want to definitely have the clusters, which is right there. And we want to be careful right here. We want to get that because it will give us more. It will give us more of the Mega Crush. Now we're just gonna use our Phoenix right here. We're gonna let it fly. There is also a health pickup right there, which is really awesome. We really needed that. And we're just gonna keep using our Phoenix because we got extra. And we want to pick up that shield, which is perfect. And then we're coming up to the mid-boss of the level. So I usually switch to the Falcon because this mid-boss drops a bomb on the ground here. And we want to make sure that we just take that out. So I just usually just shoot. And then that is the end of the mid-boss there. And now we come up to the final boss. And I love this music. I am going to switch to the Mega Crush just so I can try and take out some of these turrets here. When we're turning, we don't take any damage, which is really nice. I'm gonna actually use the T-laser here because that kind of shoots through everything, which is super useful. And then I will switch to the Mega Crush here, which gives us some iframes. I am going to use that turnaround to my advantage because we don't take damage when we do that. I'm going to use the other Mega Crush here. I'm going to use my cluster, which is really, really nice. And then I'm going to switch back to my T-laser. Still got my shield, still have most of my health, which is really great. So that's really awesome. Could also use the gun pod there if we need to. And then here, I like just switching to the bomb, honestly. And just dropping the bomb on the weak point right here until that is time. Awesome. We did it. We did it. Not only did we finish the game under sub 30, 26:32, we also did it deathless. Oh my gosh, what a satisfying feeling. It was amazing. If you're wondering how I'm playing this, I am using a Super NT with the original UN Squadron cartridge with a wired Super Nintendo controller hooked up and capturing it using an Elgato HD60S. And it has been such a pleasure playing this game for you. Now, the different difficulties do have different ending cutscenes. We get a shortened cutscene on easy mode, but nevertheless, we do get to finish the game and see the ending. It's amazing. Thank you so much for watching. This has been very satisfying knowing that I got a 26:32. This is a personal best for me, deathless. And it's been really awesome sharing this with you. So I'm going to let the credits play. And you all enjoy. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Ash Said Hi. This is UN Squadron, easy mode, deathless run. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.